Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Made with Jackie Hansel. My guest today is Scott Tejerian. He is a cosmic guide that uses the language of astrology to help people navigate their way through life, offering clarity and a deeper understanding of themselves. So welcome, Scott. So great to have you here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We are talking about The Wizard of Oz, the film. And for those of you who don't know The Wizard of Oz, which I'm sure most of you do, it is a 1939 film produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, which is MGM. It's an adaptation of L. Frank Baum's 1900 children's fantasy novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I will give a quick synopsis. When a tornado rips through Kansas, Dorothy, played by Judy Garland, and her dog Toto are whisked away in their house to the magical land of Oz. They follow the yellow brick road toward the Emerald City to meet the wizard, and en route they meet a scarecrow who's played by Ray Bolger that needs a brain, a tin man, Jack Haley, missing a heart, and a cowardly lion, Bert Lahr, who wants courage. The wizard asks the group to bring him the broom of the Wicked Witch of the West, who is played by Margaret Hamilton, to earn his help.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I do know why you chose this, but why don't you tell everyone why you chose this movie to talk about?
I feel like the Wizard of Oz is such a great film and story about self-empowerment. And when I think about when Frank Baum wrote this book, it was in 1900. It was in I think a difficult period in American history. I feel like the people were feeling disenfranchised by the government and the powers that be, the elites, let's say. And there's just a lot of similarities between the time that this book came out and when the film came out, which was during the midst of the Great Depression, and in the time that we're living in now. There's just a lot of similarities. And I feel like the film and the book, the story, it's such a great story of self-empowerment. And I feel like it has a lot of, it really resonates with where we are today and the message that we need to receive in the collective.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to empower ourselves.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
And that basically, I know you've said this and we know this too, that they all along had what they thought they needed. Mm-hmm. They just had to have it pointed out to them.
Exactly. So when you look at, the story of The Wizard of Oz, it begins with the film with Dorothy, Judy Garland. She is a young girl, teenager. She has a dog. She's coming home from school or wherever she's coming home from. And she is concerned because she has been accosted by a woman, Ms. Gulch, who lives down the way, who is upset because Dorothy's dog, Toto, has gotten into her garden again and bit her on the leg. And this woman goes down to Dorothy's house, and Dorothy is desperately, she's looking for help. She's looking for help from her aunt and uncle who have taken her in. I guess, Dorothy's an orphan, which is a similar sort of theme that you see in a lot of these fairy tales, these, even like when you think of like the first thing that came to my mind when I was rewatching this was like, wow, this is just like Star Wars. Luke Skywalker doesn't have parents. He's living with his aunt and uncle. And so Dorothy is living with her aunt and uncle. And so you're already feeling this sense of like, wow, this child is very vulnerable because their parents are gone and they're being taken care of by aunt and uncle who are, doing their best. And as much as you love your aunt and uncle, they're not your mom and dad. So there is that issue of vulnerability, which draws you in and really makes you feel like, okay, I feel a sense of, I need to protect this character, this child, like she's vulnerable. And, her aunt is busy, running around the farm trying to get everything done. There's 3 farm hands that are working there, and Dorothy is trying to get their help, and they're busy with their lives. And the uncle is just kind of like, this man who's like, well, if whatever your aunt says is what I go along with. There's a real passivity to the masculine energies. And I think that's important to note, because there's a disempowerment that's happening here. It's like the men are not willing to stand up for themselves, and they're too busy to listen to the concerns of a child. I think that's really important, because children are the future, and attention needs to be paid to them. And Dorothy is in a position of distress because she's concerned about the well-being of her dog.
Yeah.
So eventually, Mrs. Gulch shows up to Dorothy's aunt and uncle's house and demands that the dog be given to her because she wants the dog to be destroyed. She's gone down to the county sheriff, and they've given her permission to take this dog and kill it because it bit her on the leg.
Right. And
Dorothy's aunt just complies because she reads the notice from the sheriff. Well, what the sheriff says so, then I guess we have to give the dog to Mrs. Gulch. I don't want to, but we have to do what the sheriff says.
Right.
And then she tells her husband, Dorothy's uncle, to take the dog, and then Dorothy lets him take the dog and give the dog to this woman, Mrs. Gulch, and she rides off with Toto. And that's how the story begins.
Yeah. So completely devastating.
Yes.
And to just showing like the power and how helpless they are.
Yes.
To that.
Yes, exactly. Well, and they give in so easily as well.
Yep.
So, yes.
Yeah. And even when she's talking to the farmhands, and they're just like, well, just, just to avoid her, like, don't go that way. Like, they're just kind of giving her, quick fixes.
I'm just thinking about how this movie's crafted. And so we begin in this moment where the dog is taken from her. And it's just, there's innocence here. Innocence is being taken. Like, if
her unconditional love is being taken too.
Yes, right? A dog represents unconditional love. When you think of the word dog, it's God spelled backwards. And God is unconditional love. And a dog is unconditional love, or God in human form, or in the form of the material realm. This is how the love of God is expressed, because it does not matter what you do to a dog. If it's your dog, it will love you unconditionally. And so it really just shows a breakdown of society, a breakdown of the character of the man, of mankind. And when I say mankind, I mean man and woman, man. Anyone could allow this creature that represents unconditional love to be taken from a child in their care. I mean, that shows a breakdown of not only society, but in the mental strength of the individuals that are charged to look after this child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't imagine any circumstance where I would be okay with, yeah, go ahead and, oh, I guess, the sheriff says, then,
Right.
no.
Right.
No, the sheriff's going to have to come down here himself, and we're going to have words.
Yeah.
And there's no way that this dog is going to be taken.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that it bit your leg. We will do whatever we need to do to make amends for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we will make sure that we keep the dog out of your garden. We apologize for trespassing against you. But you are not, this dog being put to death is not an equal exchange of the offense that
Right.
has been created against you. So anyway, she takes the dog and rides off, and Dorothy is devastated. She's distraught. I mean, this child has now been destroyed. It's not just the dog that's going to be destroyed. It's the psyche of the child. Mm-hmm. You're conditioning the child to not believe in themselves or what is right. And Dorothy is wanting to run away.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to run away from home because she no longer feels safe at home.
Yep.
And a home is supposed to be a place of safety and security. But Toto gets away from Mrs. Gulch and runs back home, jumps, Dorothy, oh my God, Toto comes back, very excited. She's like, we got to get out of here. So she runs away from home, and she goes off and as she's, on her journey, she runs into a man who is like a traveling thespian or gypsy, or he's a man of magic and crystals, and psychic. He's an esoteric psychic. Yeah. Yes, and he's got his little trolley where he does readings for people. It really makes me think of myself, but like in the worst possible light. And so he is playing Dorothy. He is reading her. Yeah. He understands that she's in distress, and he's reading what she's going through, and he's, asking her to close her eyes and then digging through her little bag to see if there's any clues or hints that he can get in order to understand what is going on with her. And he's pegging her, and she's amazed by what he's doing. And, but to his credit, he encourages her in a sort of manipulative way to go home. Right. By saying in his crystal ball, he's like, oh, there's a woman, because he looks in her bag and sees a picture of Dorothy and her aunt, and says, there's a woman. Oh, she's, weather worn. And she's like, oh, that's my Aunt Em. It's Emily. Yes, it's Emily. And then he says, she looks distressed. She's crying. I think she's crying. What? She's crying? Yes. It's like she's lost something and she's looking for it. Oh, that's me. I ran away, and oh, okay. Well, and so Dorothy goes back, and as she goes back, the wind starts to whip up, a tornado's on the horizon, and Auntie Em, Uncle Henry, and the three ranch hands, they're all getting into the cellar, and they're concerned. Where's Dorothy? Dorothy, Dorothy. Dorothy, gets back to the home too late. They're already in the cellar. They can't hear her because it's so loud. The wind is so loud. So Dorothy goes in the house. She gets knocked out. The window blows in, hits her on the head. She, passes out in the bed with Toto, and that's where the dream starts. And the house starts spinning, and you see the Mrs. Gulch, riding on her bike. Dorothy realizes she's in the twister, the cyclone, and the bike that Mrs. Gulch is riding on turns into a broom. Yeah. And she becomes the witch, and you see everything kind of like morphing into this dream world until Dorothy seemingly wakes up and walks out of the house, and everything is color. Yeah. Yeah. And now we're in the wonderful, land of Oz. And Dorothy is like, where am I? This is the most amazing place. And it's something that she's kind of manifested, because she's like, I want to go someplace where there's no problems. where there's no problems, where I'm not, trying to run from this woman who wants to take my dog away from me and kill it. And so she's greeted by the good witch, Gilda of the North, who's like, oh, and asks Dorothy, are you a witch? She's like, I'm not a witch. I'm nobody. But even in that asking her, the witch, this is making the presumption that Dorothy is someone of power.
Yeah.
But Dorothy thinks of herself as nobody.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important point, because each and every individual needs to understand the power that they have within themselves. But so many people think of themselves as powerless, as being nobody. Who cares what I think? Well, I don't matter. And it's such an important point, because this is the arc of the story. So the witch says, well, I'm a witch. And Dorothy's like, you're a witch? I've never seen, no, you can't be a witch. You're beautiful.
Yeah.
And okay, the witch is like, well, but yes, those are the witches that have like ugly energy.
Yeah.
My energy is good. So I look beautiful to you. But you've killed the witch. You've killed the wicked witch of the East. And she's like, what? I'm so sorry. I was like, no, it's okay. The house just landed on her. And, and the Munchkins are really excited about this. And she's like, what Munchkins? And they're like hiding in the bushes because they're scared. They think that you're a witch, Dorothy, because you killed this other witch. You have this great power. And so, she's being lifted up as you have power. You've done something good. You've eradicated this evil that was oppressing these people, these little people here. And I think it's important to recognize what the Munchkins represent. On one hand, you could equate them with the general populace. On another hand, I also kind of think of them as the media. Because the media, like in the United States, they'll say that you hear people say all the time that like the media is actually in control of the government, but I don't see it that way. I see that the corporations are in control of the politicians and the media. They're the ones that are really pulling the strings. So, who does the witch represent? Who does the wizard represent? They all represent the benevolent kings or queens, whether it be a corporate head, a billionaire, let's say a billionaire, the good billionaire, the bad billionaire, the good politician, the bad politician. I think the witch, the wicked witch of the West, represents a bad politician. I think that the wizard represents a billionaire. The good witch could represent maybe a benevolent billionaire, a benevolent politician. I think I lean maybe more towards the billionaire than the politician, because I think they have more power, but and the witch of the North has more power. But the Munchkins are like the media, because they just parrot off of each other.
Yeah.
When one person says something, the other person echoes it. They're basically saying that they just say what the other one says, and it just ripples through.
They too are like, follow the yellow brick road. Like they're just saying what to, what
follow the yellow brick road. And it's like, I represent the Lollipop Guild, and like they eat. And what are they trying? The Lollipop Guild. They're, take this candy. It's like the media is advertising, this soda, this candy, this product, this pharmaceutical product. It's all,
to
just
make you happy.
Yes.
To make you happy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they're telling her, the great and powerful Oz. They're uplifting the the billionaire, you know, Bill Gates on his own channel, you know, or you know, the good witch is the good billionaire or the good politician, and then you've got the, you know, the wicked witch is like the bad politician, the Donald Trump who the media hates, you know, and they're glad that like this oppressor is gone. So, but they tell her to follow the yellow brick road, and the yellow brick road, you know, many have said that like this represents the gold standard, which was something that was coming about in the 1890s. And the president who was president of the United States during when Frank L. Baum published The Wizard of Oz was William McKinley. And McKinley was assassinated. So you think of the connection there to like Donald Trump. And so McKinley was really big on the gold standard. And the person who assassinated him said he did this because he didn't like, you know, those politics, because they, like the general populace wanted silver to be the standard because silver was more common. The gold was something that only the billionaires, let's say, had. And the average folks didn't have access to gold. So there's that correlation. And in the book, the shoes that Dorothy wears are silver, not ruby.
Do you know how it got changed? Why it got changed to ruby?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'd have to look that up. But, you know, my guess is that maybe it just looks better on camera, you know. But, you know, even when the film came out in 1939, there was this disparagement from the haves and the have-nots. Because even the people that were rich, they weren't poor and destitute. They might have had less than what they had, but they were still, you know, they weren't asking when their next meal was going to show up, and they weren't waiting in a bread line, right? Because they had the means to get it however they wanted it. So, so they're telling Dorothy to follow the yellow brick road. And that's the messaging that we still have to this day, that money is going to save you. When you're rich, you're going to have everything that you need. And so that's the fallacy. So she follows the yellow brick road because that's where her answers, that's where she's going to get her answers. She's going to go to the Emerald City, which to me feels like Vegas. It's bright and shiny. It's where the, you know, the dreams come true. You go to Vegas, you're going to make that money. You're going to see the big show, you know, you're going to enjoy yourself. And whatever happens there stays there. You don't have to tell anyone about it. You know, it's that whole, there's this fantasy to that place. And so she goes off on that road, and the first person she runs into is the scarecrow. And the scarecrow represents the farmer. The farmer. The dumb hick, you know? Right. It's like the simple-minded middle American Nebraska farmer that people discount. They think that because this man works on a farm that he's not very smart. Because if he was smart, he'd be working on Wall Street, right, where you really make money. So he can't be of much intelligence. And that's what the scarecrow represents. When ironically, the scarecrow is like the smartest one in the bunch. Because the scarecrow, first of all, tells Dorothy how to get him off of the post. He's like, I don't have a brain, you know, so I don't really know anything, but maybe if you just move that nail a little bit, I would drop off. And she's like, oh, good idea.
He's also the one, he also thinks of the idea to get the trees to throw the apples at them.
Exactly.
Too. Yeah.
He manipulates the trees when they go along to, the apples. And that's another important metaphor too, because they just want to have some food.
Right.
But yet the food is fighting back. It's like the issues with hunger and how expensive food is. It's really wild.
Yeah.
And so they're being repressed by the very things that are bearing the fruit, the trees.
Yep.
But the scarecrow comes up with the idea that to aggravate the trees, so the trees start throwing the apples at them because they're angry at them, and so now they have all these apples. The Tin Man's next. So they meet the Tin Man. And the Tin Man represents the factory worker. The person that works in the factory that has, you could even think of it now as like the tech geek. The person that's behind the computer that has no heart, no soul. No, they're just, typing away on a computer all day, or, working in the factory, putting this part on that part. No heart, no heart. There's no passion. There's, they're just like a machine.
Yeah.
But the Tin Man is actually the most caring and kind of the bunch. He's very sensitive. I found it interesting that the actors that they chose for the Tin Man and the lion, the Tin Man, as you said, was played by Jack Haley. Jack Haley is a Leo, and Leo is the sign that rules the heart. And Bert Lahr, who played the Cowardly Lion, is also a Leo, which is the sign that's symbolized by the lion.
Yeah, that's funny.
So I don't know if they did that purposefully. I don't think so.
I doubt it.
They actually had somebody else playing Jack Haley, playing the Tin Man before Jack Haley.
Okay.
But that person had to drop out because he was like poisoned by the
makeup.
Yes.
Or the silver. Wow.
Yeah, they're using like lead or something on his face. He was like in the hospital for like over a week, and they had to just replace him.
I hope.
And he's actually a really famous actor. His name is escaping me right now, but he was like one of the main actors on the Beverly Hillbillies.
Okay.
Yeah. Played like, the grandfather or something.
Oh, he played. Okay.
Yeah. So he survived, but he didn't survive getting, fired from that role because they screwed up. And so when they put the makeup on Jack Haley, they used like a different mix.
Clearly,
yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, so they get the Tin Man. He comes along with them, and then the lion is next, who's terrified. The lion represents, really kind of that alpha male. Whether it's maybe it's someone in the military or someone who's like a local politician that has like the power to, or maybe it's like a bigger politician that has the power to really stand up to the oppressor, but doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're a lion. You can stand up to anyone or anything. So why don't you?
Right.
Why don't you? And so the lion, and they're very aware of what they feel like they're missing. That's why the scarecrow says, well, that's why they go along with Dorothy. So this wizard's going to help you get home. Maybe he could help me get a brain. Dorothy says, well, I don't know, but I don't see why not. Just the innocence about it. And then the Tin Man, well, maybe you can come with us. If, we're going to see this great and powerful Oz, he'll give you a heart. Come on, lion. He'll give you your courage. Your, what does he say? Nerve, he's like, give me some nerve. So they go along, and of course the witch shows up, and this is the oppressor. This is the bad politician, the dirty politician that in some ways is maybe protecting the billionaire that is, the Wizard of Oz, the billionaire that is suppressing everyone and allowing, pretending that they're doing good deeds, but is really has everyone under their thumb. So the first thing she does, she puts a spell on the poppy field. poison.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, my God, like, I'm like, this is the opioid
Yeah.
crisis.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's like drugs.
Yep.
This is drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so ironic because even though, you know, Judy Garland didn't die of an opioid overdose, she died of an overdose of barbiturates, of drugs.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, we're living in this Piscean age where we're very uncertain of what reality is, what's real, what's not real.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, there's a feeling of confusion or disillusionment. And through that disillusionment, we want to escape.
Yes.
And we escape through drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the poppy field that renders them unconscious. And, or at least Dorothy, she loses her wits. And the lion.
Yep.
Yes. Then the good witch puts in the spell to save them, and they get back on the journey.
Yeah. I was just thinking, going back to the witch, how, because I was like, wait, she's so against, like, she's going after them. She's going after Dorothy so much. I was like, oh yeah, she wants the ruby slippers. She wants that power, and she wants to take away the power from Dorothy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a great point. That's important to bring up. Yeah, that's why she's after her. Because the ruby slippers are on her dead sister, the Wicked Witch of the East.
Right.
But when she tries to go get the slippers, they vanish off her feet. I think the Good Witch does a spell and puts them on Dorothy's feet.
Right.
And says, no, you know, Dorothy, you're going to have that power. Mm-hmm. And whatever you do, don't let the Wicked Witch of the West take them from you. Mm-hmm. And so it's really interesting, just going back to that for a second, how the Good Witch doesn't just tell Dorothy right off the bat what and it's really like a metaphor for life. Yeah. Why we're here on planet Earth to begin with. Right. We've got to go through the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations. In order to evolve, to grow, to learn, to really recognize and appreciate the power that we have. Mm-hmm. If we're just told the power that we have in the beginning without ever struggling to find it ourselves, then we might not have any respect for it. Mm-hmm. So Dorothy and her crew arrive at the Emerald City, and they get in. And they see the wizard, and the wizard scares them, intimidates them. And, you know, the lion he turns tail and just runs out of there as fast as possible. And so, you know, like the wizard he impresses them by telling them he already knows what they want because he's the wizard. Yep. And he tells them that, you know, in order for him to give them what they want, then they need to do something for him, which is to get the broom of the witch. And it's a seemingly impossible task, but it also just is reflective of how these people in positions of power, they're always willing to go after each other and to use their pawns. Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Lion, they're all pawns in this game to achieve their means. Yeah. And really, the wizard's only mean here is to protect himself because he knows that he doesn't really care about the broom. No. He's just hoping that they don't come back. Yeah, he doesn't really want the broom. He also thinks they're never going to get it and probably get killed trying. And that right? And that's because he doesn't want them to come back because he knows if they do, he doesn't have an answer for them. Yeah. He can't provide for them what it is he was promised. Yes, exactly. Or what was promised. Yeah. Yeah, he tells them that if you get this, then I'll do this for you. But he knows that I can't, so I need to give. It's impossible for me to give the Tin Man a heart, the Scarecrow a brain, and the Lion courage, and it's impossible for me to get Dorothy home. Right. So I need to give them an impossible task so that they don't come back here.
Don't come back and realize that he's a fake. Right?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's they will know he's fake if they come back because he won't be able to give them what he promised them, what they asked for. Right. So he gives them this impossible task. And then they go to this place, her castle, yes, where the witch is living. And she sends her minions to attack them and to take Dorothy and Toto. Mm-hmm. Now these are the foot soldiers of the politician. Those are like the flying monkeys. Mm-hmm. And the green men are like the administrators for the politician. They're not like the CIA covert people that are out there assassinating people undercover or whatever. But these are the people that are in the more maybe managerial sort of roles, but are also suppressed by the tyranny of this individual. And so, but this is where when Dorothy's captured and then Toto gets away again. And it's so interesting how
Toto saves the day, basically.
Well, this is the thing. This is the beautiful metaphor of Toto.
Yeah.
Because Toto is what? Toto represents unconditional love.
Yes.
And unconditional love can't be contained.
No, that's true.
It's unconditional. Mm-hmm. So Mrs. Gulch tries to contain Toto in her little picnic basket, and Toto gets away.
Yep.
Because love doesn't want to be around that evil. Because it's trying to contain it. And it's like, no, I'm not going to be contained. I'm unconditional love. And then with the witch, who is Mrs. Gulch incarnated as in the dream as the wicked witch, she captures Toto again, but Toto gets away again because Toto is like, I'm not going to be around this evil. I can't be contained. I am unconditional love, and I'm going to go back to the beacon that I recognize as reflecting that love to help the woman that I love, the young girl that I love, Dorothy. And so Toto makes it back to the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, and the three of them. And of course, it's the Scarecrow who hatches the plan. This is what we're going to do. You know, the Scarecrow's got the plan again. He's coming up with all the ideas.
For no brain. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, Lion, you're going to lead us. And the Lion's like, me? No. You know, it's like, yes, you. And so, and, you know, the funny thing is that they actually get ambushed by the bat, you know, the flying monk or the green men or whatever. They see them, they jump on top of them, but the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion end up overcoming these, you know, bad henchmen, and they put on their costumes and they get into the castle. They follow in the castle and they get Dorothy out, you know, and you know, the significance. So like the witch says, like, you know, turns this hourglass and says, by the time this hourglass, you're dead. And I think that's significant because it really represents the time that you have here on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. It's not infinite, it's finite.
Yeah.
So at what point in your life are you going to recognize your power? At what point in your life are you going to recognize your power? Because this story is all about subjugation of power and oppression through power. And so they break through just in time, right before the hourglass ends, and they get Dorothy, they free her. But then they're running away from the flying monkeys and they get cornered and now they're trapped. And the witch is there and she's going to burn the Scarecrow up. But conveniently, right next to Dorothy is a bucket of water. And she douses the Scarecrow and puts out his fire. And then some of that water hits the witch and she starts to melt.
Yep.
And it's just a metaphor of how simple it is to overcome evil.
Yeah, and I was thinking how good water, is supposed to be pure and clean, cleansing and clear. Yeah.
It's cleansing.
That's what killed her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Water is pure. Water is cleansing.
Yeah.
And so it that's all it took to take down the witch. You know, it makes me think of another film that, maybe this would be a good one to talk about, is Labyrinth, where at the end of the movie, it's like the bad guy, the David Bowie character, is just, just a man in a silly costume in the closet. This person that's been terrorizing them the whole film is like, it's like, turn on your light and notice that the monster is nothing. It's a blanket crumpled up in the corner. So again, it's about empowerment. And so as soon as she destroys the witch, all the minions are like, thank you. Yeah. They're free from her spell now. They're no longer subjugated to her.
That's when they say all hail
Dorothy. Yes.
Yeah.
The good witch, or I don't know what they say. I can't remember. Did they
say the queen? Gosh, I don't remember.
Yeah, I just watched it last night, and I don't. They
went from. It's just interesting because they went from being, suppressed and trapped with this witch, but then they went and were like, "Oh, we worship you." I just thought that was interesting. They went and worshipped her.
Yes,
immediately,
totally
bowed down.
Yeah. They're still in that
letting
frequency.
Her take away. Yeah.
They're still in that frequency. It just shows that certain people are still in that frequency, that no matter what, they're always looking outside of themselves for validation or a savior. Something else is going to, this is my person. I also wanted to note too, one more thing about the Tin Man, like showing heart, is the Tin Man is the one that breaks down the door.
Oh yeah.
With his axe.
Yep.
And saves Dorothy. So then they go back to the Emerald City and they see the the wizard, like, we got your broom. Now give us what you said you were going to give us. And he's like hemming and hawing and this and that. And then Toto again
reveals the truth.
Yes. Because unconditional love is pure. And there is no falsity in love. If it's true, if it's pure, then everything is open. But like truth is rooted in love. And trust is rooted in love. And so Toto, which is that beacon of unconditional love, pulls back the curtain. And the first one to notice it is the scarecrow. He becomes aware. Look, what? And the guy's still trying to like play it off, like, oh no, I'm still the great and powerful Oz, and trying to
pay attention.
Don't look at that man behind the curtain there. It's like still trying to continue with the facade.
Yeah.
But they find him out.
Yep.
And then, he tells them, the truth, but still in his own same con man sort of way. Yeah. Like, he's like, where I come from, you have a brain, you have a heart and you have courage, and there's nothing that anyone can do to give you that. You already have it within yourself. But, something I do have that you don't, where I come is from, there's great universities with intellectuals and brilliant minds. And the one thing that they have that you don't have is this diploma.
Just to give them something.
Yes, but it also just shows like that maybe there's a fallacy to the whole education system. That the education system is something that is put in place to make people think they're smarter than what they really are. That maybe the average ranch hand who never went to college has as much intellect as the person who did. And it's the structure of society that says, no, in order to be smart, you have to go to Harvard or this school. That makes you smarter than everyone else.
Yeah.
It literally is what they're, and so that creates a structure that says, well, look at this individual. They went to this school. They're worthy to be our leader. Right. And when was the last time a president of the United States wasn't a college graduate?
Right.
That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you're not a part of the system. And the government is a part of the system. The schools are a part of the system. Corporations are a part of the system. You're just somebody who owns a farm. You're nobody.
Yeah.
You're not smart. You're not intelligent. You're nobody. That's what it's telling you. But then when the wizard gives them a diploma, it's almost saying like, the only difference between you and them is this piece of paper. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
And so then with the Tin Man, or the next, he gives the lion the courage. And he's like, all these men, they go off to wars and this and that, and they fight in battles, you know. The only thing that they have that you don't have is this medal. Because you have courage. So it's also discounting these endless wars that never seem to end. That's why they're endless. Because we're always going from one conflict to the next, to the next, to the next, which is a part of the military-industrial complex. So you have the schools, you have the military, and then with the Tin Man, you have the corporations. He gives them a heart. He's like, I don't remember exactly what he says to him. You know what he says? It's about the working. He's like, it's the working man. And, you know, the only thing that you don't have that they have is like this timekeeper, you know? And it's like, oh, it's ticking. Like a heart is ticking.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
And that's also discounting, or, you know, the whole corporate world. So you have the school system, you have the military, and you have the corporations. That it's like these three things are nothing without the people that actually contribute to them. The school is nothing, the military is nothing, and the corporation is nothing unless they have people that are involved in them. It's not them that make the people powerful. It's the people that make them powerful.
Yeah.
And then that leads us to Dorothy, where she's, oh, well, Dorothy still needs to get home. He's like, okay, well, I've got my balloon. I can take you off. I can take you with me. I'm actually from that area of, you know, we can go back there. So he has this big grand send off, you know, because he's the most amazing person, still full of himself. And then Toto jumps out of Dorothy's arms because the cat. And this is the cat and the dog, you know, working their magic. That Dorothy still needs to learn this lesson. Because she's still subjugating herself to this billionaire, to the wizard, and saying that the only way that I'm going to get home is if he gets me home. I can't do it on my own. I don't have that power. But the wisdom of these animals, the cat hissing and the dog going after the cat, is like the power of God, using the energy to, okay, there goes the unconditional love. Now Dorothy goes after her dog, but now, oh no, he's gone away. Now I'm never going to get home. And the good witch comes back and is like, Dorothy, All you have to do is click your heels together 3 times and repeat, there's no place like home.
Mm-hmm.
There's no place like home. It's literally teaching people how to manifest what they want in their lives. It's like The Secret.
It's manifesting, but I also just thought of it just now too. It's also saying that to feel safe in your own skin, like or your own body, actually more than just skin, but like heart, soul, everything, that you have to feel safe inside of you, no matter where you are.
Yes.
Too.
And that's how she gets into that meditative place. It's like the clicking of the heels is grounding you.
Mm-hmm.
You click your heels, okay, like it's like almost like hitting yourself. Okay, I'm here. That's like centering her.
Yep.
And then there's no place like home. She's now centered within herself. Mm-hmm. She's clear on what she wants.
Yep.
And she brings that into her reality.
Yeah.
And she wakes up back in her bed. Everyone's there.
Yeah.
The scarecrow, the tin
even
man,
the
lion.
Guy, the psychic.
Yes, the wizard. Yep, exactly. Everyone's there. They're all glad she's back. And she's glad she's back. Yeah. Because she realizes that she's never going to take this place for granted again.
Right.
Because where you are right now, this life is a gift. You are a gift. Your breath is a gift. Your heart, your soul, these are gifts. Mm-hmm. So don't take it for granted. Empower yourself. And so I just think this is such an important message because there's so many people right now, especially in this country, that are looking outside of themselves for answers, whether it be with whoever's running for president. And there's so much despair around thinking about, oh no, if this person gets elected or if that person gets elected, oh no, the wicked witch of the West, oh no, the great and powerful Oz, oh no. It's like, don't be that.
Yeah.
You are subjugating your power to them. And when you think about what's happening right now in the planets astrologically, with Pluto is about to transit back into Capricorn from September 1st to November 19th. So it's going to be there during the presidential election. This is the last time that Pluto is in Capricorn for another 230 years.
And when was the last time before?
So Pluto moved into Capricorn in 08, 09.
Okay.
And it's been there ever since. It's been dipping in and out this last year or so into Aquarius and back into Capricorn. And then this is the last time it's in Capricorn for another 230 years. But the time before this most recent time that Pluto was in Capricorn was 1762 to 1778. That was during the American Revolution, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, when people decided to empower themselves.
I just got chills. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we're being called to that action again, to say, stop looking outside of yourself for answers. Stop discounting yourself. You are as smart as them. You are as courageous as them. You do have as big of a heart as they do. Tap into that.
Yeah.
Don't look outside of yourself for empowerment. If you do, you are disempowering yourself.
And also separating. We're such
separating from yourself.
Separating from yourself and from others instead of coming together with them. And it's like, it's just stuff I see on Facebook. People they sound like they will fight tooth and nail for that candidate, and they don't care if that ruins a friendship, a family relationship. It's like, look at look at what's going on here. How is this good for anybody right now?
Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the spell. That is the spell.
Yep.
And that's the Wicked Witch has cast their spell, and it's willing to end relationships, whether that's a friend, a lover, or a family member, because of what this person said on TV versus what that person said on TV.
And they're putting so much weight on that it's going to.
And who knows what is even exactly.
Yeah.
Who knows what is even real? You know, I mean, it's literally like, it's like one of the funniest things is that I've heard soap opera actors say like that people will come up to them on the street and be like, I can't believe you did that to Jennifer. And he's like, that it's not real. It's a soap opera. I didn't really do that to Jennifer. You know, but people are so caught up in the fantasy.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with the news.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so it's not to say that people aren't dying out there and there aren't bad things that are happening. But you don't have to be engaged in that.
Right. And there is this feeling that if you don't acknowledge it or care about it or get worked up about it, then there's something wrong with you.
Exactly.
You need to be upset about this.
And that is the brilliance of the demonic spell. That you have to be in chaos if other people are in chaos. It's urging you to be a sheep and to just walk off the edge of the cliff rather than shifting the energy. Let's shift that. Let's be Toto here. Let's focus on the love and let's bring people to that love. Not everybody is going to, that's for sure. There's always going to be death and destruction on planet Earth. We live in a world of duality. That's why the sun is not up 24/7, 365. Even if you live in the most northern part of Sweden or Iceland or one of those types of places, Alaska, and it's sunny, 20 plus hours a day during the summer, you still have to live with that 20 plus hours of darkness in the winter.
Right.
It balances out.
Right.
So you take a breath. You can only hold it for so long. You have to let it out.
Yeah.
You throw something up in the air, it comes back down. We live in a world of duality. So we have to understand that there's always going to be pain and suffering in complementary to joy and bliss. And we're not all going to be able to be in that joy and bliss all the time, but we also don't want to wallow in the pain and suffering all the time.
Right.
There's a time for both. But when the powers that be, when the wizard is whipping people up into those frenzies, or the witch, you are being drawn into that spell.
Yeah.
It's even with like sports. Yeah. It's like, so excited. It's a Super Bowl, and people just get wound up in this energy.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be that thing that lifts them up, but then we have to tear them back down. You want to be your own barometer. You want to be at the top of the pendulum where you're not swinging from, one side to the other. You're up here like this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I see people suffering. That's awful. What can I do to help and be of use to, if not them, then to the people in my sphere, so that I'm sending out a good frequency to the people in my sphere, and then that resonates from the people that are in my sphere to the people in their sphere, and so on and so forth, and that creates a ripple effect of positive change.
Everybody has to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I'd love to know. I mean, you just basically, I contacted you because I heard about you from a friend about your podcast
Oh,
and
cool.
the weekly transit. And I think when I emailed you, I was like, you do this with your partner. Do you call her your partner?
Yeah,
Gabriella.
Gabriella. Yeah.
And she is a psychotherapist. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
And just you two complement each other so much. I love to, you talk about astrology, you call it a language, which it really is. And you just balance each other out. You both are very calming. Both of your voices are just so calming. When I listen to you, even when you're talking about like, there's probably going to be chaos like coming up soon. Okay. This hasn't happened since World War, II with the planets. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just relax into that, No worries. We're going to go to war, but it's okay. People live through wars, so all the time. Yeah, it's all good.
But I really enjoy listening to you guys. And
thank you.
I love too, you have a recent short that you did saying, people say, I don't believe in astrology. You're like, that's like saying I don't believe in English. Like, you can't deny that the planets are in these places. And also just the fact that, like, the history, like you said, the last time this will be happening with Pluto was back during the Revolutionary War. It's like, wow. I mean, I was even talking to my parents about that.
What were they saying?
They're 89 and 90. They're like Catholic, they're old school. They thought it was very interesting.
Okay,
talking
cool.
about, and they were like, wow. And they're like, that is true. You can't deny about the moon and the sun. And
well, that's the thing that always gets people is when I'm like, well, but you believe in science, not that even science is a belief. Either it's can be proven scientifically or not. It's not something you believe, but people love to say like, oh, I believe in science or follow the science. I'm like, okay, well, so isn't it a scientific fact that the sun and the moon move the oceans?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's the ocean made out of? Water.
Right.
How much does the ocean weigh? 1.5 quadrillion short tons. Each short ton is 2,000 pounds. What's the human body made up of? 60% water.
Water, yeah.
When you're born, it's over 70%. That's a fact. Wow. So if the sun and the moon can move the oceans,
right?
What were they doing to you at the moment of birth when you were just a few pounds and over 70% water?
Right.
Nothing? Really? Nothing? Yeah? You still want to go with that answer? Yeah? Okay. Then I guess you don't understand science. No, people are usually like, well, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, okay, well then maybe you should think of it that way. Yeah. But I think, that's part of also the demonic spells that are going around. Astrology is something that empowers people. Mm-hmm. And so entities that don't want power, that don't want people to be empowered, cast spells to create that confusion within our psyche to discount something that could empower you because they want you to be disempowered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. How did you first get into astrology?
Well, my first real conscious awakening of astrology, I mean, I imagine I'd heard about it as a kid, but it did not click for me at all. I didn't even think anything of it. It wasn't until I was in college at UCSB. I was at a bar in Goleta. It's called Alex's Cantina. And on Tuesday nights, they had a 2 for Tuesday deal. And I went up to a girl, was hitting on her, and I said, my sign? Like, my sign? She's like, yeah, what's your sign? I'm like, does it look like I'm carrying a sign? I don't have a sign. What are you talking about? And she's like, when were you born? And when's your birthday? And I said, November 13th. She's like, oh my God, you're a Scorpio. And she just like ran from me. And that was when like the penny dropped. And I was like, okay, so I'm a Scorpio. And women hate Scorpios. Okay, so I need to pay attention to that. There's something wrong with me. So that stuck in my memory. And then it was about 10 years later, I was in my second long-term relationship with a Leo. And even though physically, there were a lot of differences about these women. Energetically, there was something so eerily similar. And I couldn't deny the experience that I was having with the second Leo girlfriend was so similar to the one that I had with the first one. It was the same, but even worse, even more intense, even higher highs and lower lows. And I had a friend at the time who was into astrology, and she was like, well, you know, Scorpio and a Leo can be a tough match. And I'm like, you think? Yeah, I think I'm living that experience. So it's an experiment. I don't want to do it anymore. So that was the next time that I started to recognize, okay, something is here. The third time was when it really dropped me to the floor. And I had wanted to be a screenwriter for years and years and years. I spent 20 some years working in the restaurant industry, waiting tables, writing scripts, trying to get an agent or get it produced and that sort of stuff, and living the Hollywood dream or nightmare, you know? And so I was very, very frustrated. I felt very discouraged at the trajectory of my life. I felt like I was wasting my life. I had come really close to like a big break, only to it not materialize. I'm like, how much longer do I have to endure this? I'm really, really suffering. And at the time I was working on a script that I had written with a friend. I was working on a script. I was like really working on the outline with a friend from acting class that I'd known for, 15 years or so. And he brought an idea to me about this bare knuckle fighter in the early ages of pugilism, who was known as the Deafin. His name was James L. Burke. And he was known as the Deafin because he was hearing impaired. And he was known for killing the Irish heavyweight champion after a 3-hour fight that they were in the ring. The Irish heavyweight champion died like a week later. He succumbed to his wounds. And, fighting, boxing, sanctioned boxing was very different than how it is now. You could throw each other to the ground, but it wasn't like UFC where you continue fighting on the ground. Once somebody's on the ground or on the canvas, the round is over. But the round would last for, 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long, until somebody goes down. And then the fight doesn't end until somebody throws in the towel or somebody doesn't get up. And the Irish heavyweight champion, the Deafin, fought for 3 hours. And at the end, they both had to be dragged off to their respective rooms, as they called it, and lied in bed, and just they put leeches on their wounds to, very archaic, barbaric. And so everything that's written about this one fighter, James L. Burke, comes from a 3-volume book called The Pugilistica, which is over 100 years old, with excerpts in the books that are 200 years old, because these fights are taking place in the 17 and 1800s. And it's in English, but it's not in English in the way that you or I speak English. So it took me a year to really just understand what these people were saying or what was being written here, and learn the language. And after learning the language and combing through these books, because I was reading about every single fighter. You can't just read about one fighter. You got to, this fighter's talking to that fighter. Well, who's this fighter? So spent a year researching this book. And after a year, I was like, okay, I understand who these men are as fighters, because the book is about how they're negotiating for fights. And there's some anecdotes and stories, but I felt like I wanted to know more about who they were as men. And I said, well, I don't have their time of birth, but their birth dates and place of birth are in the book. Maybe if I look up where the planets and stars were on that day in that place, it will give me a general idea of understanding their personality a little bit more. And so I started looking up where the planets and stars were aligned when they were born. And then I started researching what those different placements or alignments meant. And what I found shocked me, because this was the men that I was researching.
Mm.
I was like, this sounds just like this fighter.
Wow.
And that really stopped me in my tracks, because then I was like, well, okay, I know that I'm a Scorpio sun, a Pisces moon, a Taurus rising, but I don't know what that means. And I don't know where Mercury, Venus, and Mars are when I was born, or what that means. And so I started looking all that up. And what I found stunned me, because what I found wasn't just me. It was the me that only I know. And at that moment, I started to heal, because literally I'd say it could have been a matter of like 2 or 3 months before then. I was like on the floor in my bathroom in the fetal position, just saying like, God, help me. Help me. Like I have really just destroyed my life. I don't know what's happened. I had good intentions. I thought maybe they weren't. I don't know. But I feel like I've made some horrible mistakes in my life, and I feel like my life is ruined. And show me something, anything that I can do that I would be good at, passionate about, that would help other people and would make money. Meaning, this is not a hobby. It's not a side gig. This is what pays for my life. Show me what that is. And literally like a couple months later is when it hit me on the head. And I was like, at that moment, when I started researching my own astrological code, I was like, I started forgiving myself for everything that I was blaming myself for, all the pain and suffering that I was putting myself through, all the mistakes that I thought I had made. I started to realize that everything was perfect, that my life was actually perfect, and everything started to make sense. And I was like, okay, the most interesting puzzle that I could ever imagine just landed in my lap, and it's helping me heal. I want to learn everything that I can about this ancient language, and I want to share it with as many people as I can in a meaningful way that is going to help them have the same experience that I'm having right now in this moment, where I feel seen, understood, and loved and respected by myself.
Wow.
It's not about other people. It's about me just being loving to myself. And so I set out on that path, and now I'm here talking to you.
Wow. So how did you just start a website? What did you?
The first thing that I did was I told my writing partner, I'm like, I'm done. Like I had 2 writing partners. One of them had just had a child and was like, I don't have the time for this right now. I'm sorry, and I'm like, maybe later. I'm like, okay, I was frustrated, but I understood his situation. You got to take care of your family, and you've got a lot going on. The other partner that I was writing the deafen with, we had a mutual parting of ways. We were very frustrated with each other, and he wanted to move on, and I was like, yeah, good. Like literally it's like one of those things where like 2 people break up with each other, where like they're going to get together and they're both going to tell each other they want to break up with each other. It's like, he's like, I'm going to break up with you. I'm like, you do? Oh my God, I was going to break up with you. Like, he's great. Like, so you're not mad? I'm like, no, I'm not mad. I'm relieved. I'm like, I'm not writing. I don't want to focus on writing anymore. I want to focus on astrology. He's like, are you serious? You're not going to do writing? You want to do this astrology thing? Cause I had told him like I was into it. Like I was building these charts with and he thought I was a little out there, So the first thing that I did, I was like, okay, so I'm working in a restaurant. I'm working 20 hours a week. Like, who can work 20 hours a week and pay for their rent and, their food and that sort of stuff? I mean, I'm not making a lot of money, but, I'm living a very simple life. I'm paying my bills. I'm not in debt, so I'm like, I'm just going to keep working this restaurant job. And I've got 20 to 40 hours a week outside that restaurant job where I'm just going to be doing all the research I can do about astrology. And then when I go to the restaurant, I'm going to make sure that I have the date, time, and place of birth of every single person that works in that restaurant. And that's going to be my case study. This is like my doctorate. This is me working on the job. And the people that I worked with at the restaurant loved it because like, they're like, tell me about myself.
Right.
Why am I upset today? So every day I'm going into the restaurant and I'm doing readings for my coworkers.
That's awesome.
Yes. And so I'm doing readings for my coworkers at the restaurant. And then when I'm not at the restaurant, I'm just in front of the computer looking for every single astrological code that I can find of every single public figure that I can think of. And I'm creating this massive database that has grown to over 3,000 subjects of public figures, where I have spreadsheets, that have dozens and dozens of spreadsheets with hundreds of columns and rows, and then thousands of names that are all color coded. They were really helping me understand, oh, wow. Like I'm seeing like, I'm looking at my family and my friends and my coworkers, and then I'm looking at public figures and I'm like, this person's a Leo rising, this famous person. Oh my God, I can see that in this family member, in this friend, in this coworker. I see the connection here. And it's all like every time I look at a new chart, it was like a new light bulb would go off, a new light bulb would go off. And then, after a few months of that, I was like, okay, I got the nerve to just like ask, for the first person I did a reading for who wasn't someone who I really knew well was a woman who worked at the crystal shop that I frequented regularly. I was there like every week. I was in the crystal shop. And this woman who worked there, I was like, would you be interested in me doing an astrology reading for you and your boyfriend? And she's like, oh my God, yeah, we'd love that. And so it was the craziest reading because I didn't know anything of what I was doing. I literally just I had my Time Passages app that gives descriptions of what the different alignments or the planetary positions mean. And then I had a book by Linda Goodman called Relationship Signs that got into like what it means when somebody's moon is aligned with their sun in a certain way, and so on and so forth. And so I literally spent about 8 hours over 2 days going through their charts, reading every single aspect for the sun, the moon, every planet, every placement, every sign, every house, and then looking at how it all worked with the two of them together. I just read it right out of the app, right out of the book, and everything I read, they were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That's me to a T. That's him to a T.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he is like that, or she is like that. Oh my God, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. The guy, he was like, I want to build you a website. You need to be out there. You need to, you need to be telling this to everyone. I'm like, slow down. Slow down. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. Like, he's like, you do. It was almost like that Wizard of Oz thing. He's like, you have this great power. The way that it's not just what you're reading, it's how you're reading. It's the way, it's your energy. Like, you have this power. You need to be doing this. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not ready for all that yet. Like, give me some time. So I started doing more readings for anyone who wants to do a reading. I'll do a reading for you for free. And I would just have them over to my apartment, or I'd go to their house or whatever. And I would just read right out of the app, right out of the book. And then eventually I started to find my own words and didn't need to read out of the app anymore. I didn't need to read out of any books. I just looked at the symbols, saw it in the house. You're becoming
fluent.
Yes, I became fluent. I became fluent. And that's when I was like, okay, what am I actually offering here? And so it was probably after about a year that I created a website for myself, and I started writing a blog, let's say, or a monthly or a weekly email that had like a subscriber list of like maybe 20 people that were subscribed to my email list. And I just would write the weekly forecast each week, the weekly transit. That's what I called it, the weekly transit. This is what's going on this week. I draw pictures of the astrology, and I'd write about it. And then I started charging people for readings. And it was about 4 years, a little less than 4 years after I had that big awakening, that COVID happened. I lost my job, and I was already planning moving into 2020. I'm like, I'm not going to be waiting tables. By the end of 2020, I'm not going to be waiting tables anymore. I saw what was going on with the transits in my chart, and I said something big is happening for my career, and it's this astrology thing. And by mid 2020, I know that I'm going to be doing this full time. I don't know exactly how, but I'm already making money doing it.
Yeah.
And I can see where this is going to replace that restaurant income.
Wow.
And so when COVID happened, I got unemployment, and that just like bankrolled me for about 9 months or whatever. And by the time that ran out, I was making more money than I ever made as a waiter.
Wow.
So,
that's great.
And I had the podcast by that point. Like we started the podcast with, actually I started with a woman who I worked with at the restaurant, Ingrid. And we started the podcast. We were planning to release it about 2 months before, 2 months before COVID started. And so right after COVID started, literally 3 weeks later, we released our first episode. Wow. And it really just kind of caught fire because people were wanting to know, like, what the heck is going on out there? You know, like, I need answers.
Yeah.
And so we helped provide that answer through the astrology.
That's so cool. That's a great, I love it. I love it.
Jackie.
All right. You just have some fun like questions to ask to close it out. What is your self-care? What do you do to wind down?
That's a good question. What do I do to wind down?
Do you read people's charts?
I actually,
I feel like you do really enjoy it.
That's the thing. Like the thing that I do to wind down is I have like a list of literally probably, I don't even know how many people are on the list. It's in the hundreds, if not thousands, of like more public figures that I'm adding to my database.
Right.
And it's very meditative for me to do that. I will look at their chart and I'll take their name. I'll put the color on it. They're all color coded by their rising sign. And I'll put it into the aspects, the different aspects that they have. And then I'll go to the different planetary placements, the signs, the houses, so on and so forth. It takes me about 10 minutes for each to dissect each chart. And usually, by the time I've done like 3 or 4 of them, I'm just like, okay, now I'm ready to go to sleep or take a nap or something, know? So, yeah.
Cool. I had a feeling that's what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Just from
no, I feel so fortunate because like the thing that I love the most is like my work. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
What is something you can't leave the house without? Like if you're
my bracelets.
Yeah.
My bracelets.
How many you got?
There's 7 on my wrist right now.
I have 4. I used to have 5, but my rose quartz broke.
These things changed my life.
Yeah.
These things changed my life. As I said before, I'm a Pisces moon, Scorpio sun. I'm very empathic. I'm very sensitive. I pick up a lot of energy from people around me. And so, I would walk into the restaurant, I would have like a great day of writing, let's say, to go to the restaurant and I just feel like amped. I'm like, oh, wow. I feel empowered. I feel, like life is going well for me. And then that first person that's sitting in my section that's had a bad day, that has some sort of demonic spell going on within them, they dump their day on me and it send me into a tailspin. And so by the end of the night, I'm angry. I need to go home. I need to drink. I need to smoke weed. Those were the ways that I was coping with myself in those times, or going out and partying with my friends when I was even younger and just really wasting my life away. And there was a woman who I worked with at the restaurant. She's like, you should go to this crystal shop, Spellbound Sky. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And
Yeah.
so I looked it up online, and I literally had the tab open on my computer for like 7 months until I finally went there. And I went and I picked out 7 crystals, or actually 8 crystals, just little small stones that I thought, they had something to do with Scorpio or, Pisces or Taurus. It's owned by these two men who are just very amazing human beings. They call themselves witches, and they're a couple, and they used to be, I think, fashion stylists. And one of them, Mark, was like, "Oh, you what are you looking for?" And I told him what I was looking for in terms of the astrology. He's like, "Well, just trust your eye, trust your instinct. Look at what crystal draws your eye, touch it. How's it feel?" And then Martin, who is just like, he's such a big personality. He's the one who checked me out at the end. And he's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "You have a crystal for almost every chakra except for one." He's like, "I'm going to get one and I'm just going to throw it in for free so that you have one for each chakra."
Oh, wow.
And so he did that for me. I was so touched. And later that night, I went out with a friend, and I had the crystals, some in like a little pouch around a necklace that I'd bought at the store, hanging right here over my solar plexus, and then another one in my pocket in a little pouch. And I was walking to a restaurant in my neighborhood with my friend, and halfway there, I asked him, we're just talking, I was like, "This is going to sound really strange, and I apologize, but would you mind if we went back to my apartment? Because I need to unload some of these crystals that I'm wearing right now. It's way too intense. Like it feels like they're burning a hole in my solar plexus and in my pocket."
Wow.
And so he's like, "Okay." So we went back, and I dumped off a bunch of the crystals. I think I maybe just kept a couple, and we went out to dinner. But that's how much they were changing the frequency within me. And so I started wearing them to work, and then I started buying these bracelets at Spellbound, and that's why I was going in every week. Every Tuesday after therapy, I'd stop at the crystal shop and I'd buy a new bracelet.
Right.
and they changed my life, because I would go to work and that agitating customer wouldn't agitate me anymore.
Wow.
Or if somebody was having a meltdown, one of my coworkers, it wouldn't affect me in the same way. So now it's like, I never take these things off. Wow. They're with me all day, every day. It's my energetic armor.
Do you sleep with them too?
Yeah.
And shower and everything? Or no?
Not shower. I don't shower with them. Okay. No. Because showers, the water. The water's pure. It's cleansing. Yeah. You don't need to shower with the crystals. Right. You don't need to go in the water with the crystals. No. Yeah. It's just when I'm out there in the world, or, especially like interacting with other people, even people, that I'm excited about interacting with and that I love, like you, but, it's like, it's just to protect everybody's energy here. Yeah.
Yep. I love that. What is something you can't live without? Now that I assume it might be crystals, but I mean, it can be very superficial. It could be deep, whatever, something you just cannot live without.
Oh, I mean, crystals are one thing. Yes, that's on the list. I mean, I would also have to say, just like the information that I've accumulated with like all of these, like this like database that I have, like my Gabriella's like, "You're so paranoid about this thing. Like you're always backing up your computer and all." I'm like, "Yeah, because I've spent like hundreds, if not thousands of hours, like building this database. Like and it's a resource for me." And so like my time passages app, where I have all these charts and everything, and it's really it's a lot of technology. So I mean, I just think like, wow, when they pull the plug on technology, what am I going to do?
Right.
But at that point, I think that I'll have the knowledge that I need to have to work through whatever circumstance I need to work through. I know how to draw a chart without a computer. I've got the books to do it. And so, I mean, I think like the obvious one too is like my family, like the people that I love, I mean, they're on the list also. So.
It's hard to live without love too.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So where can people find you?
theweeklytransit.com, theweeklytransit.com, or at the Weekly Transit on Instagram or TikTok, the Weekly Transit on YouTube,
right?
The Weekly Transit everywhere, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places that you listen to podcasts, The Weekly Transit.
Great.
That's how they find me, or just type Scott Tejerian. But The Weekly Transit's maybe easier than Scott Tejerian. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is so great.
You're welcome, Jackie. Yes, it's great talking with you too. I really appreciate you, and I'm grateful for you having me on. I'm honored.
Aw, I'm honored too that you came on. All right. Well, thanks everyone. See you next time.
This is the BTRP Media Network.